When a man loves an androgynous demon lady, can't keep his mind on nothing else. Welcome back, my friends. It's Total War Warhammer 3 news today, and there's a lot coming your way. We got the Dark Prince, She Who Thirsts, Slaanesh. Y'all know the drill, unit roster time. We got battle gameplay coming in a few hours as well, so we're gonna be busy. I was kind of debating whether I wanted to cover the campaign map overview after the leak, which, by the way, gets really old. It's annoying when Creative Assembly themselves do it. It's annoying when other content creators do it. It's very easy to not break embargoes for most of these reveals. You just look at the time and date and don't upload before then. Stupid simple. You guys don't really care. Leaks just mean you get to see stuff early, but screws up my schedule big time. Makes it harder to make good videos for those embargoes, and if it happened enough times or on something really big, it could cut down on how much content we get to see early in the future. So every time it happens, I'm a bit of a salty boy. As for the campaign map itself, ultimately decided not to cover it. I don't think I need to make a video every single time CA farts, and there really wasn't a whole lot of substance to discuss on that front. So for now, I'll just say I think it looks cool. Maybe I'll go back and visit it if I'm bored, but not a lot to break down there, not a lot to analyze. There's just a lot of eye candy, which, hell, I like eye candy, but I don't think it needs to be its own video for now. With that out of the way, let's talk Slaanesh. It's been a weird dynamic since their blog creator left or got fired. I don't know what happened on that front. All I know is that the campaign and lore mechanics have been handled much differently and much worse ever since they parted ways. Still, there's a lot of new detail here when it comes to Hermaphrodite, and this includes a better look at what the Dark Prince can unleash on the campaign map and on the battlefields of Total War Warhammer 3. We've already covered Gifts of Slaanesh, which embarrasses enemy characters and legendary lords, making them suck even more when you beat them in battle, and Devotees, which are captured servants used in creating chaos cults, vassals, and raising disciple armies. A very interesting, unique trait that quite a few Slaaneshi units share on the battlefield is the Devastating Flanker passive that grants double charge bonus when attacking the rear or flank of an entity. This is how Slaanesh will devastate enemy troops, as if their speed and armor-piercing values weren't enough. Honestly, sounds disgusting. I'll talk more about which specific demons have that trait in a moment, but doubling your charge bonus, when some of these units already have amazing charge bonus to begin with, is a huge deal. But the real winner here that we didn't already know about is Seduction, which is when your milkshakes bring all the boys to the yard and quite literally force enemy units to switch sides for the entirety of a battle. No specifics have been forthcoming as of yet. I imagine there will be some limits on which units can be seduced, because shaking your mommy milkers at a stone horn, for example, and screaming, "Come here, you big furry freak, I'm gonna butter your bread," wouldn't be super appealing to a creature like that. But this is a crazy mechanic, regardless of whether or not you'll be able to bring tier 5 enemy monsters over to your side. I mean, any situation where you could grab Dragon Princes, or Lead Belchers, or even just a unit of Saber Tusks, denies the enemy an important battlefield tool, gives you the benefit of those troops, and just completely changes the complexion of how a battle is fought. I do think maybe that whatever unit you can seduce should be limited to something that's humanoid, because again, seducing Saber Tusk pack, while that sounds kind of Slaaneshi, doesn't make much sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they keep it to only infantry and cav units that are of a humanoid nature, but we'll see. It might be something where you could literally get their tier 5 single entity monsters, and if that's the case, that will be pretty insane. Either way, it's a dirty ability, and it's only going to get stronger as you move into mid and late game, and more powerful troop choices start showing up in AI armies, and you start unlocking the tech and abilities that let you seduce more than one unit at a time, because it doesn't have to be limited to one. Nakari can pull over multiple to his side per battle, which means you'll be starting each fight with a huge advantage, even if you can't pick a specific mammoth or giant to saunter on over willingly. So yeah, OP. Not exactly a new thing for the demons here. Seems like every single one of these factions has at least one mechanic that's busted as hell. But yeah, Seduction is Slaanesh's. You get to steal enemy units and use them yourself. Crazy. As for Nakari, a bit more detail on his specific abilities as well. Remember that his Harvester of Souls passive regenerates his health and stacks multiplicatively when enemy units are fully killed off nearby, and Willing Prey is a single target hex that debuffs melee attack and melee defense. On top of that, he'll be getting his Wit Stealer sword, making an appearance from the Demon's 8th edition codex, improving his base and AP weapon damage, empowering him to take on pretty much anyone in the game. And it's not an exaggeration, there are very few duelists in Mortal Empires who will be able to take on Nakari in a straight-up fight, especially when you think about his mobility and cycle charge potential. He doesn't have to duel you in a straight-up fight. He can run away, then strike your flank when you're not paying attention again. So, let's take a look at the unit roster and get into the nitty-gritty details of how each of these troop choices are special and what they'll bring to the table for the Dark Prince in Warhammer 3. So, for Legendary Lords, there can only be one. Nakari, the Bane of Ulthuan, will be your named Greater Demon. For generic Lords, there is a Herald and an Exalted Keeper of Secrets. The Herald can ride a Steed of Slaanesh, a Seeker Chariot, or the Exalted Seeker Chariot, and all that will remain true with the Allurus in the Hero section as well. They can both have access to Lore of Shadows or Lore of Slaanesh. For heroes, we have the Cultist, Druki Anointed, whatever you want to call her. She can ride a Chaos Steed. She's a duelist. The Allurus is pretty much the same thing as a Herald, just in hero form. For Cavalry and Chariots, Seekers, Heartseekers, Hellstriders, Exalted Seeker Chariots, and Hellflayers, those 3 chariot variants, are going to make up the bulk of your mobility for this faction. And for infantry, Chaos Furies, Marauders with spears, Marauders with swords, Marauders with Hell Scourges, Daemonettes, and Exalted Daemonettes are your infantry choices. Hellstriders can also wield spears or Hell Scourges. For monsters and beasts, we have the Keeper of Secrets, Fiends of Slaanesh, Soul Grinder of Slaanesh, and Chaos Spawn. So, it's a good looking roster, has all the demons from 8th edition, and it has some unique and flavorful mortal representation as well. Chosen, Chaos Warriors, Knights, they'll come later, but the Marauders and the Hellstriders are really nice additions, and really kind of fleshes out that side of the roster to an extent that we did not see for Tzeentch and perhaps Nurgle as well. So, let's first talk about Lords and Heroes. The Exalted Keeper of Secrets making its grand debut with the Lore of Slaanesh or Lore of Shadows, utilizing spells like Lash of Slaanesh, Hysterical Frenzy, Slicing Shards, Acquiescence, Pavane of Slaanesh, and Phantasmagoria. Important little note here that has not been mentioned before, all Exalted Lords from the demonic ranks cannot be directly recruited in campaign. Instead, their Herald counterparts must gain sufficient experience before being presented with the opportunity of converting into their deadly counterparts. I don't think that is exclusive to Slaanesh. I believe that will be true for every single demon faction. Very similar to how you'd expect a Demon Prince system to work, right? Start out as a lowly Chaos Lord at level 1, work your way up to level 30, then suddenly the Demon Prince becomes available. Same thing here, making the jump from Herald to Exalted Greater Demon. Interesting stuff. Curious to see if that'll have any implications moving forward with Demon Princes or any other system. The Heralds of Slaanesh are the fastest and most deadly of the Dark Prince's courtesans, unleashing their 3 special Locus abilities. Remember that on the tabletop, all Heralds for Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh had Locus abilities that would help buff up nearby troop choices. So for the Slaaneshi Herald, Grace is the first, melee defense and physical resistance buff in an AoE, quite useful for the inherent squishiness of this roster. Glass Cannon faction in a nutshell. Then we have Swiftness, which I'm personally very excited to try out because it greatly improves charge bonus, charge speed, and movement speed. Synergizes exceptionally well with what Slaaneshi demons are all about. It means you'll be seeing Heartseeker gank squads moving at like 124 movement speed frequently. That is insane. 100 move speed apparently wasn't enough. We'd be busting our way up into 125, 130 territory. Disgusting. It's going to be really fun to see what Slaanesh can do when they're running down troops. And Beguilement, which reduces leadership and melee defense for nearby enemies, which again, synergizes quite well with some abilities we'll talk about in a moment. A lot of synergy in this roster, and it's all focused on one thing, and we've been hitting that point hard because it really is what Slaanesh is all about. The Herald can ride either a Steed of Slaanesh, a Seeker Chariot, or an Exalted Seeker Chariot, which, if nothing else changes on the skill tree front, means you'll really only be dumping skill points into the Exalted Chariot version, but that, combined with the devastating Flanker, is going to be busted. Like, Slaaneshi Chariots are going to be out of this world, as long as their mass isn't terrible. They're going to be crazy strong. Double charge bonus on an already hyper fast and deadly AP chariot will be quite the sensual experience, I think. The Aluris, as we said, pretty much the same thing. We saw her with the Fin crest in the last trailer. Super cool looking model, just a hero version of the Herald. Same mounts, same passives, same lores of magic. The Cultist of Slaanesh has a rather uninspired name for such a cool model and lore implication. As we talked about in the previous video, pretty much a Druki or Azure Anointed, a corrupted elf steeped in the rituals of a pantheon not her own. She'll have access to Torment Blade, Pendant of Slaanesh, Deadly Onslaught, and Gate of Slaanesh, but that might be a typo that's meant to say Gaze, I'm not sure. Either way, she's a duelist with the Chaos Steed, makes a bigger impact if you leave her on the campaign map, corrupting horny people over there. Onto the cavalry options, and dare I say, these are the units that have me most excited in the entire roster, because it is very uncommon to run into troop choices with 100 plus speed that have this much potential killing power. I mean, we have Warhounds, maybe Pegasus Knights, but those are flyers. All flyers typically faster than land-based troops. These are land-based cavalry with 100 plus move speed that will get buffed up by the Locust from the Herald, and they look freaking sick too. Seekers are the standard Daemonette cav, while Heartseekers are the elite officer squadrons led by Exalted Daemonettes, the ones with the ponytails, and the Heartseekers have a unique passive called Soul Scent that gives them a big boost to AP and melee attack when hunting units that are wavering or routing. So you can see the synergy CA is going for here, encouraging you to link up with lords like Nakari, making it easier for them to heal, and making it easier for you to run down routing troops and trigger your army abilities. Remember, that's how you get army abilities with Slaanesh. You run down routers when your melee attack and your armor-piercing weapon damage are being buffed. In that kind of scenario, then you're going to be causing some serious issues to anything that's trying to escape the battlefield or rally once it gets a little bit of space. You don't ever want to give them that space, and you'll have the speed to prevent that from happening. Combine all that with Devastating Flanker for the double charge bonus and Vanguard deployment, and these light cav are going to be a serious problem, especially for factions like Cathay that will rely heavily on artillery and missile play. Hellstriders are their mortal equivalent, coming in two variants, Spears and Hellscourge Whips. These are drug-addled marauders who exist solely for the hunt, feeding their addiction with pain and death. Once they climb atop their steed, they will never again dismount, either dishing out enough torment to sustain their tortured minds and bodies, or dying from withdrawal. Some fight with blades mutated into their flesh, which is the spear variant we've seen, long arm blades and all, and others fight with Hellscourge Whips. Their Soul Hunter passive was discussed at length in my Lore Army and Tactics video a few years back, but they become even more potent the more models they kill, increasing their damage resist, leadership, and charge bonus at hard-coded thresholds. Perfect unit for running down routing troops. Marauder Infantry is much the same, utilizing the same model, carrying swords, spears, or Hellscourge Whips. And the most important thing here is that they're all immune to psychology, which is a huge deal for the Slaaneshi front line because terror will be even more common in Game 3, especially when fighting other demonic factions and ogres. So having that additional staying power is super important, especially in multiplayer, but perhaps early on in campaign as well. It's not like you can spam archers in an early game with this faction, so you'll need bodies on that front line. Be curious to see if CA tries to make infantry any more viable in Game 3. Immune to Psych, certainly not a bad trait to have. In fact, it's quite literally what the Mark of Slaanesh does in tabletop. Back to the mobile stuff though, Seeker Chariots, Exalted Seeker Chariots, and Hellflayers have the highest potential upside of any unit archetype in the roster, in my opinion. They all look and perform similar roles, because Chariots in Total War are almost always designed to mulch infantry, barring a few older historical games. You know, besides Chariots that could kill a Mongolian cav horde in 5 seconds flat. But that's not their role in Warhammer. They're about killing infantry, and they do it exceptionally well. The mighty Exalted Seeker is a single entity chariot pulled by 4 steeds, dealing poison damage, double charge bonus on flank and rear attacks, and perfect vigor, which is absolutely filthy on a chariot this powerful, because that's one of the few weaknesses of chariots, right? Even when microed well, they get exhausted relatively quickly, lose most of their stats, and then they get dragged down over time. But perfect charges, with no reduction in stamina, over and over and over again, That is a lot of penetration. Quite pleasing indeed. One of the very best traits a single entity chariot could ever possibly have is perfect vigor, and these babies got it. Seeker chariots are the same thing, but worse. 3 or 4 models instead of single entity, and no perfect vigor for them, but still quite potent. And Hellflayers are another single entity chariot, perhaps even more devilish and crazy looking in their design than the other two, equipped with the Soul Send passive, again boosting their attack and AP against wavering and routing troops. And then onto the infantry section, we have Chaos Furies of Slaanesh. They have the devastating flanker trait, and likely a bit more speed than their counterparts from other factions, as will Chaos Spawn. Thankfully, no more Forsaken. Think I've had enough of them for now, at least until we get some unique models sent their way. Daemonettes are your standard frontline lesser demons, fast flanker infantry that hits really hard for their price point, but quite squishy as well. So think similar to Witch Elves in some ways, while Exalted Daemonettes are better in every possible way in terms of their combat prowess, and they have the Soul Sent passive, and those dope-ass ponytails. What Chosen are to Chaos Warriors, Exalted Daemonettes are to their lesser sisters. Finally, we're into the Monsters and Beasts section, where the Keeper of Secrets will be a rare single entity threat, equipped with Lash of Slaanesh and Acquiescence, combining 100 plus speed with high AP, weapon strength, and Blissful Rapture, which we don't have details on yet, but I would venture to guess it's probably a debuff to nearby enemy units, kind of like that soul-sucking miasma that surrounds them, that cloying perfume that makes enemy units not want to fight. Fiends of Slaanesh are even faster, emitting a soporific musk which lowers attack and defense, and isolating high-value targets, poisoning them and allowing heavier hitters to move in and finish the job. And then the Soul Grinder of Slaanesh will have a slightly unique model, equipped with what looks like a Demon Bone Claw, much faster and more focused on armor piercing than its brothers from the other Chaos factions. Less focused on ranged combat, not even sure it will have one, even though the description here says that it charges into melee firing stuff. I'm not sure that this one actually has any missile capability whatsoever, but it will be better at dueling and hunting down expensive troops and characters. You'll be seeing a lot of these units in action in the next few hours, so I'm going to go work on that video, because as much fun as unit roster reveals are, seeing them kill stuff in real gameplay is even better. So, see you in the next video.